Hello, and welcome to So You Think You Can Rule Persia, the podcast where we rate and review all the kings of Persia from Diocles to Yazdegerd III. I am Sariel, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Umberto, and my pronouns are he, him. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 85.2, Khosrow II, Part 2.
Ah, yes.
So, just to make it clear to everybody, this is the second part of Khosrow II's episode. If you want to start from the beginning, go to the previous one, 85.1. Also, 84 is probably good context, because it helps you realize how did we get there. So, it's good to know. But yeah, otherwise, feel free to enjoy and listen to this episode. But yes, Sariel, so, what are your memories from last time? What are your hopes and dreams for this time? How do you expect things to work out?
Ooh, okay, so... So last time I was actually very impressed with what Khosrow did, to the point where I truly did not expect things to go well in any way, shape, or form, and he really surprised me by rising to the occasion and just actually being really badass. I am a bit concerned because things have gone well so far, and I am aware that they might not continue going well. We might have an Antiochus III. Was it Antiochus III situation?
Yes.
Where things were incredible, and then by the very end, the Romans had just taken everything from us because of a couple of mistakes.
Yeah, that was the Antiochus III experience.
I don't love that, and I hope that's not what's going to happen. But so far, I was very, very impressed and actually had a reason to root for Khosrow. That, unexpected, but really cool. One of those really cool episodes, you know?
Nice. And do you expect that, knowing Khosrow, having experienced his previous episode, do you expect he'll do really well at the end, and then just his heirs will mess things up? Or do you think that things will just go poorly for him? What's your prediction?
Sure. I think the Romans owed us, right? Now. Right? Is that how we left
We'll get in a recap, but the Romans offered us everything.
Yeah, so I don't think they're going to
Khosrow
randomly...
said, no, this is beneath me.
I can't predict the future, obviously, but I do not think that they will randomly, rise from their ashes and take everything from us. It depends who comes next in the line of succession, but I cannot remember, so... they were doing badly, they are my main concern. I don't know, because Khosrow is doing a good job at... consolidating the empire that he does have. He's not just randomly expanding without end like Alexander did. He is very ambitious, and he is annexing a lot of territories, recovering a lot of territories, and reaching for the stars on everything that he does. But he is a good strategist and a good actual emperor. Unlike Alexander, who was
he's doing
just
a good job
general.
Administering the new
yeah,
parts
exactly.
of the empire,
He's doing
making
a
sure
good
the
job.
Christians are happy
So
and that they all
even
work.
if he passes away, I don't think things would just disappear immediately, which makes me worry, because I'm either the nobles just destroy everything like they've been known to do before. When was it Shapur who had a 30-step plan on what to do after his death?
Yes, Shapur the First had a 30-step
and then
succession
they
plan,
immediately
but
went
still
no, we're not
collapsed
gonna listen to it. Yeah, so that's a possibility, right? Once the leader is dead, who knows how things are gonna continue. But as of now, I don't know. I wonder if that's what's gonna happen, because I was trying to see are things going to collapse before he dies? But right now, I don't have a huge sense of danger. I was scared for most of last episode, but then we've been doing so well that by now I'm okay, so I guess we're fine.
You're relaxed.
I don't think we have a major threat at the moment. So I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay, we'll find out. This episode, you'll find out if you're wrong or right.
Indeed.
So let's just briefly recap what happened in the last episode. In the last episode, Khosrow came to the throne as a puppet of both nobles and the Romans
We did not
after
have
having essentially
huge
chased
hopes.
away the forces of
Yep.
Bahram Chobin. But Khosrow slowly managed to start a coup against his own government, got rid of one of his uncles, and then fought the other uncle in a long civil war that Khosrow won by having the uncle's wife kill him and switch over to Khosrow.
Yeah.
So that was cool. Good. Good for him. And then we had the whole scene where essentially the Roman Emperor Maurice was overthrown, but his son, or supposed son, Theodosius, came to Khosrow asking for his support in retaking the Roman throne.
Yeah.
And Khosrow said, yeah, sure, I'll get your throne back. This sounds brilliant. And so Khosrow decided to invade the Roman Empire, fight the Emperor Phocas, take a lot of Syria, and then he eventually continued fighting against the new Roman Emperor Heraclius, who took the throne afterwards. And things kept going really well for Khosrow. He took over Syria, Palestine, bits of Anatolia. His soldiers came into sight of the city of Constantinople. And when the Senate itself went to Khosrow saying, hey, we give up, you can choose the Roman Emperor, whatever, please stop hitting us, Khosrow decided to say, nope, I'm just going to destroy the Roman Empire. I don't care to have you as subjects. I want you to not exist anymore. So that was his plan. He managed to conquer Egypt. And now the empire is the largest it has been for 1,000 years. Egypt is back in the empire
I was so
at last.
impressed that Egypt came back for some reason.
Yeah, Egypt is back in the story again. The last time we saw it was during the fall of Alexander's empire when Ptolemy the First was still there. So yeah, it's happened.
Wild.
And now Khosrow, as you said, was busy consolidating the empire, working through some religious reform, keeping a lot of the Roman administration, just updating it so it would work with the new empire it was a part of, and overall it was doing very well. And so let's find out how it goes. Let's find out how the rest of Khosrow's life will be in the next years. So I thought that to start we would talk a little bit about Khosrow's personality. What is his vibe? What is he as a person?
What is he as a person?
Yes. So first of all, Serial, what is the point of being a great conqueror and the greatest Sassanid king who has ever lived if nobody knows about it?
Yeah, exactly. Why would we even do that? Yeah.
Yes, we need to tell everybody what we're like. So Khosrow decided to celebrate his victories in a grand style. He prepared sites at Behistun, remember where Darius the Great and Mithridates the Great listed their achievements and their greatness and how they are the great kings that have founded their empire and so on and so forth.
Tying things with the ye olde times.
Yes, exactly.
Like the kings of
Darius
old.
is our top scorer for a reason.
Yeah.
So we're saying, look at my achievements, ye mighty. And, Serial, Darius's inscription is 25 meters wide and 15 meters tall, which is quite impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Khosrow's relief is 183 meters wide and 38 meters tall.
What? My dude.
Yes.
Compensating for something? You don't have to. Trust me. I guess if you have a huge empire and money, then you're well, we can just do this now. If not now, when?
I mean, Serial, if you're the man who is going to destroy the Roman Empire, you want to show off a little bit.
That's fair.
I mean, Shapur had a massive thing for a Roman emperor kneeling before him.
Yeah.
And capturing another
that was
and killing
so
a third.
badass.
That's very good. Khosrow decides, no, I want a full triumphal relief about me destroying Rome and becoming the only king that matters in the world.
Incredible.
Everybody else is beneath me. Not only that, but this relief is connected to a massive viewing platform, a palace, and a triumphal procession road for ceremonies so he can show all his friends, hey, look at me! I am the greatest king who has ever lived.
Well,
so anybody who is coming to visit will be able to see his greatness and majesty.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I don't know why I'm so,
And yeah, so Khosrow's ambition is not only to equal the great deeds of his predecessors, but to make them seem minuscule by comparison. I will show you the relief at the end during Face of Faces with the comparison of Darius's just next to it, and it's really intense how much it all changes.
Oh my god. Yeah, so, I'm excited.
There we go. And another element that is often found as part of Khosrow's story in his literature is his beloved horse.
Oh.
A jet black horse, and can you guess what it was named, Serial?
Certainly not Bucephalus.
No, not
Bucephalus.
Bucephalus.
Okay, good. Because I'm like, if he... I feel like Pompey the Great would do something like that, but...
Oh, absolutely. I feel like Khosrow's trying to make his own myth.
Good. That's what you should do. Like, make your own character.
He's trying to do his own thing, yeah. Exactly.
Otherwise, you're just like, such and such wannabe. Like, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think his black horse is named?
I mean, obvious names might be like Midnight or Shadow or something like that. I don't know how poetic he is. If he's
got it in like... one, Serial. Midnight is the name of his horse.
I am so smart. Me and this emperor are just on the same wavelength.
Yes. In Old Persian, the name is Shabdez.
Oh, that's a pretty name.
It's very nice. Sounds very cool. And Khosrow loved this horse dearly and deeply cared for it. And yeah, so we have different anecdotes about him and Shabdez. So one of them is that we're told that when Khosrow was mounting Shabdez, his bridle broke because of the tension.
Yeah. Heck.
So Khosrow said, I'm going to have the man responsible killed. How dare you offend my horse this way?
Mm-hmm.
But the man thought quick and replied, No, sir. It's just that there is nothing that can resist the king of men and the king of horses. Khosrow
You're
said,
just too powerful.
Okay, good one, I guess.
Yeah.
Good save. Okay, fine. You get to live today. Good one.
One more day.
Yes. You get to keep your job and your head.
Yep. I like both my job and my head. Thank you.
And another situation that he has is that Khosrow would kill whoever announced the death of Shabdez.
Oh.
Because that would bring him so much pain, so much anguish that, well, he would kill the messenger who sent this. But at some point, Shabdez unfortunately died because he was a mortal horse.
Yep.
So, what do you think the messenger tried to survive? If you were the messenger in charge of telling the king the news that he said he would kill anybody who would give that news, what is your strategy there?
I'd probably just send an anonymous letter. Like, I would not, I'd just leave it somewhere for him to find. I don't know. I'd say that it, was taken by the gods to serve Ahura Mazda or whoever.
You're kind of close.
It has to be something like, ethereal or something. Like, it has to be something fantastical.
Close. Because he gave it to the court musician of Khosrow, who began to sing a sad song announcing the death of somebody, and he wasn't saying that who's dead, but it's like, so swift and majestic, but now it's dead, and sad, and all that. And at this, Khosrow said, "Curse you! Shabdez is dead! How dare you tell me this news?" And the singer replied, I didn't say anything. The king said that Shabdez is dead. I didn't say it. I mean,
so he said it himself. So
but you're on, yeah. So Khosrow said, "Okay,
now he
fine,
must
I
execute
guess.
himself.
Sure, you get to live." Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, fine, I suppose you can live. This is all right.
That was smart.
But yeah. And apparently there's a similar myth told about a Danish queen announcing the death of her son to the king.
Ooh.
So apparently that story took a wild trip or has an interesting common ancestor somewhere.
Yeah. Interesting.
To get all the way to Denmark, that's unexpected.
We have not crossed paths with the people up there at all.
Yeah, exactly. We barely know that they exist, At best, we know that there's places in the distance where they have amber. I suppose that's nice, but...
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, Khosrow is known in literature as being extremely extravagant and fond of luxuries.
I see.
He is said to have had 3,000 between wives and concubines, and his baggage was composed of 12,000 mules filled with luxuries. and 760 elephants for general miscellaneous purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's neat.
Yeah.
Other cool things he had were a chess set with pieces made of rubies and emeralds. That's neat. He also had a cloth with which to clean his hands that he could just throw into a fire and that would clean it and it would be fine.
Oh, that's so cool. What the heck?
Yes.
Do we know what this was?
Yes. The problem with this cereal is that it was probably made of asbestos.
No!
Which I guess is,
No!
cool, but also, oh
dear. Your health, my king. Your integrity of your mortal body.
I mean, it's a cool party trick to have a cloth.
It's incredible, but it is not worth.
Wash your hands again.
It's not worth using an asbestos cloth. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
How bad is it? If he regularly
it's bad if
used
you breathe it in. I mean, it's mostly if you just erode it and get dust from it. I guess if you're treating it nicely, it shouldn't be.
You're
that
putting it
bad,
in the fire,
but
yeah.
I mean, that's the cool thing about asbestos. It's really temperature resistant. That's why it's so useful.
Yeah, that's why we put it to insulate houses. Before we realized that if you breathe it in, you'll be royally f***ed. Okay, so can you make a cloth? Because asbestos, so the problem is that it has fibers and they break off. And then they make little particles that can be airborne and you can breathe them in. And they will ruin your lungs. Yeah, because they're sharp. Yes. It's like breathing glass, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. That's a good comparison.
So, you can make it into fabric? Because fabric, famously, has to be resistant and not break in your hands and also be, malleable and has to bend.
Yeah, you can essentially spin it. I'm not that kind of scientist, but you can spin asbestos into a cloth or into garments, so you could do this.
Is it a mineral?
Pretty quick ass, yeah. It's a mineral, yes.
We just find it on the earth that?
Yeah, you can just mine it and pick it out, and then there's a way to refine it, of course. To get it
okay, so listen.
That's pretty cool.
Isn't it wild? Because when I imagine someone weaving metal, I'm like, okay, if it's silver or gold or something malleable, even lead, right? You could melt it and then form it into thin threads and then use that, to weave as you would with any other thread. But a rock?
Yeah, I don't probably understand it. I assume it's one of those, and again, I don't know. This is my assumption. It's one of those chemical reactions where you get strings out of it. When you put an acid on a certain mineral, then it tends to form long columns.
Oh yeah.
Of another source. I don't know if you've ever seen those videos online where it looks like there's a portal to hell with strands coming out of that.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, I assume it's something like that where you can just get
science.
Nice thin strands out of it and you can just weave those together into a great cloth for your king. So
okay, so that's so cool. Wild. I'm sorry that we're going in this absolute tangent that has nothing to do with anything, but
hey, I mentioned it because it was cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Other cool things that Khosrow had were a 50-kilogram crown made of gold, rubies, and emeralds that was too heavy for him to wear and had to be suspended by a golden chain over his head.
That's terrifying.
Because, very Sword of Damocles, so that's fun.
It will fall on your head and kill you.
And also, apparently, Khosrow didn't like the smell of paper.
Huh?
So, the only logical solution was to have all his paper perfumed with saffron and rose water so he could accept the smell of it.
Huh. That's wild, because paper smells nice. But I guess everyone has their,
Apparently.
Hey, write to us if you don't like the smell of
the
paper.
wrong way.
I'd love to.
Yeah. Write to us if you have your paper
also
perfumed with saffron and rose water.
Good point. Not the same paper that we make today, probably.
Yeah.
Made the same way, technically.
Piracy
but,
vibe.
Yeah. We bleach our paper, we make it in a very specific way. We put a bunch of different systems in place to...
Yeah, our paper is already pre-treated when we use it, so...
It's not like handmade paper. I love handmade paper, it's so nice. Anyway, okay, so, picky guy, but we find workarounds.
Picky. He is the king of kings. He decides, you know what, I will enjoy my luxuries where I can get them.
That's
Look
fair.
at me. I have a 200-meter long monumental relief about me and my glory. Behold. But then, of course, Serial, we get prophecies.
Oh, I love prophecies. Give it to me.
Yes, because there
Tell
is
me.
somebody who is coming. The name is the Prophet Muhammad.
Oh,
So
right.
we get prophecies.
The
So yeah,
prophet.
kind of important. So Al-Tabari tells us of one case where an angel came down to Khosrow and told him, "Why are you so fearful, O Khosrow? God has sent a prophet and sent down upon him a book. So follow him and you will be secure in this present life of yours and in the next one." And Khosrow's reply to the angel that showed up before him and asked him to submit was, "I'll think about it."
Mm.
Which is a pretty flippant way to react to an angel,
Yep.
but you know what? Sure, my dude. Enjoy yourself. But the most important in the Islamic tradition is the letter that the Prophet Muhammad himself sent to Khosrow to try and convert him.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And here I quote a story of what is said to have happened. The letter that the Prophet sent is this one. "In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, from Muhammad, the Messenger of Allah, to the great Khosrow of Iran. Peace be upon him who seeks truth and expresses belief in Allah and his Prophet, and testifies that there is no God but Allah, and that he has no partner, and who believes that Muhammad is his servant and prophet. Under the command of Allah, I invite you to him. He has sent me for the guidance of all people, so that I may warn them all of his wrath, and he may present the unbelievers with an ultimatum. Embrace Islam so that you may remain safe, and if you refuse to accept Islam, you will be responsible for the sins of the Magi." The ambassador of the Prophet arrived at the Iranian court, and Khosrow ordered the letter be taken from him. But the ambassador said that it was necessary that he should deliver the letter to the king himself, and so he handed it over to him. Khosrow then called for an interpreter, and he translated it thus. "This is a letter from Muhammad, the messenger of Allah, to the great Khosrow of Iran." The interpreter had not yet finished reading the letter when the ruler of Iran got very much agitated, shouted loudly, and took the letter from his hand and tore it into pieces, shouting, "Look at this man, he has dared to write his own name before mine."
Oh, I see.
So,
Whoops.
I don't know who you are, I am the king of kings, my name should be in front of everything.
Yeah. I mean, petty, but also that is the protocol, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's court protocol, you are the most powerful king this side of China. Fair enough.
Yeah. Muhammad should have known.
Yeah. But yeah, did this actually happen? Probably not. Mostly because chronologically at this point Islam is just starting out and Muhammad is dealing mostly with Arabia. And, you know, the timelines don't really match up.
Probably a bit too early.
Yeah, and it's unlikely that Khosrow knew about Muhammad. And even if he did, he didn't know the significance of Muhammad. He thought,
Right.
oh, it's some random Arabic chieftain saying, "Convert to my religion."
Yeah.
Who, me, who just conquered the Roman Empire? No, I think I'm doing fine, thank you very much.
Which, yeah, understandable. We've been doing other stuff.
Yeah, there's also a similar tradition that a letter was sent to the Roman Emperor Heraclius. But again, timelines are questionable, maybe,
Yeah.
who knows. We have no empirical proof of this, but
And hey, prophets be prophetizing. This is what you do. You spread your religion.
yeah, exactly. But okay, Serial, now that we've had a detour in Khosrow's life during the war, let's get back to the war itself. Because what is missing, Serial? What do we still need to take? Our job is not done yet.
What do we need?
Well, the Romans still exist.
Oh, yeah, true.
That is the problem.
I was like, we're doing fine, right? Yeah, I guess we haven't completely
we're
crushed
still at
them.
war.
They're just like under our boot.
That's right.
But, you know.
Yes, we need to
Okay.
press.
So are we marching into Rome? What are we doing?
We are headed towards Constantinople, Serial. We need to destroy the
Istanbul,
last city, take the capital, and annihilate them.
Okay.
And the good thing, Serial, is that we have friends.
Oh, hooray. Good for us.
Because in 622, the Avar nomads invaded the Roman Balkan territories after an agreement with Khosrow. Because, Serial, what did we do with the Turks all that time ago? We used the Turks to split apart
Yes.
the Hephthalites and destroy them.
We did some questionable choices that would come to
Yes.
bite us in the ass. I remember.
we're deciding to repeat that plan, Sarah.
No, but we're doing so well. Do we need to? Do we need to?
But
Can
we'd
we
have
do
to
it
cross into
ourselves?
Europe. That would be a big pain,
Oh my
Sarah.
god. We were doing so well.
We also don't have much of a fleet.
Is this our
but
downfall?
We're trying, Sarah.
Like,
Find out, Sarah.
is this where we up? Because it keeps happening.
Well.
Listen, it keeps happening. And we keep making the same mistake. Maybe we should stop making that mistake. You know?
Sarah,
Like, maybe
this
we
time
should
we
just
have a
not do that
seam between
anymore.
us and them. It's probably fine. It'll be fine. They're nomads. They can't make ships. They just have horses. That's their main deal.
They just have... Just... Air quotes. Just have horses.
There's the Mediterranean. They'd have to cross that. That's a big sea.
Mm-hmm.
There's stuff. We can survive. But yeah,
Sure.
Khosrow makes a deal with the Avars and says, if you invade the Roman lands, and we invade them at the same time, you can keep Europe, we'll take Asia. Is that fair? Cool. You can even keep Constantinople. I don't really care about keeping it, I just want it destroyed. Otherwise, knock yourselves out.
Okay.
So the main plan is that the new Mediterranean navy that has been built up in Egypt, now a province of the empire, would take Rhodes and occupy the Aegean islands, while Khosrow himself would lead a land army across Anatolia and add it all to the empire after a vanguard army had defeated any remaining Roman resistance. So that's the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the Romans still exist and still have some fight in them,
Yep.
because they have one army left. That's it, Ariel. There is one army in the Roman Empire.
Wait, one? Like, that's it?
There is one army, yes.
Oh my god. Okay.
So
I
they're
mean,
trying
it's now
their
or
best
never,
to
clearly.
survive. Yeah. So the last Roman army is led by the Roman Emperor Heraclius, and it managed to cut off Khosrow's army, cut off its supply lines when it was heading into Anatolia, and forced Khosrow to retreat east to regroup.
Okay.
At the same time, Heraclius followed Khosrow into Iran, fighting guerrilla warfare, and managed to sack an extremely sacred temple in western Iran,
Oof.
which supposedly contained a fire that had been burning since the creation of the world.
No. Didn't we lose something
Yes,
like this
that's unfortunate.
before? Wasn't this like one of the early episode omens?
There was something similar before Alexander came,
Yes.
and also at the fall of the Parthians. That was also something.
Okay,
that
because I'm
happened.
like, this rings a bell, but I could not tell you
Yeah.
exactly why.
Yes,
That's-
it has happened
okay.
before, but this is another of those super ancient temples that are being destroyed by the
Yet
Romans.
another fire that was burning since the
Yes.
beginning of time. Okay.
Yeah, very much.
No big deal, I'm
I
sure.
think there were 5 main ones, but yeah, this is one of them. So yeah, the fire was extinguished, the sacred waters were polluted with the corpses of the priests, and the complex was set ablaze. Because, hooray, the Romans. At the same time, the Romans sent a letter to the Turks and said, hey, do you want to attack the Sassanids at the same time? That'll be fun. And yeah, so the nomads came down through the Caucasus and raided at Iranian lands that were unprotected since Khosrow was mostly concentrating on the Romans. On the bright side, however, this antagonizes a lot of the people of the Caucasus, which Heraclius was trying to bring to his side, but, you know, they were being raided by the Turks because Heraclius told them, so no, they're not going to side with him. They're going to continue siding with Khosrow, who's protected them. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
There is also a suggestion that I'm personally not convinced by, that the members of the Espobudan family, which controlled the Caucasus traditionally, so this is the family of Khosrow's uncles, Bestam and Bendoy, may have turned against Khosrow in memory of, you know, the uncles being killed. And this sort of allowed Heraclius an easier access to these territories. But I'm not fully convinced because it's the territory of these nobles that's being raided, so it's kind of counterproductive. And also, usually executing members of your family wasn't something for which you hold an eternal grudge. Like, we have, you know, the son of a man Kavad the First had executed, helped him escape from the Fortress of Oblivion. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's not necessary that it constantly ends up with these nobles messing things up. They're nobles, so I wouldn't put it past them, but the war is going well for Khosrow. There's no reason to jump ship.
Right.
So over the next year, Heraclius would rampage with his army in the west of our empire, outmaneuvering the 3 Persian armies which had managed to isolate him further north. So essentially, Khosrow has 3 armies that he's trying to maneuver, trying to squish Heraclius and encircle this last Roman army to crush it. But Heraclius has few men, they're well trained, and they can get away under cover of darkness, and they've been trained in guerrilla warfare. So Heraclius was managed to be isolated further north, but this was at the cost of 2 defeats on the Persian armies, which weren't destroyed or anything, but they had to pull back and get better adjusted. The problem with this is that it's kind of a bad sign for Khosrow's prestige, because, according to all official propaganda and the massive stone relief, the Romans were defeated. Rome is dead.
Yeah.
But now there's this army that's just poking at Khosrow, saying, you can't catch me, you can't catch me. So this is infuriating, and it's not good.
Yeah. It's hurting our PR.
Yeah, it's not great. As for the navy, the Persian navy was new and inexperienced. We hadn't had a navy in the Mediterranean for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
We need to train up new people. At the same time, the Romans had dominated the Mediterranean for 1,000 years and had the forces to show it, so they're sort of putting aside our advances in the shipyards. There is also a letter of questionable authenticity where Khosrow seems to offer Heraclius lands and stipends if he surrenders, but it's not super reliable because it imitates other historical events in the future and past, and it was read out by Heraclius as propaganda in Constantinople, saying, look at them, they're ready to surrender, we're winning, look at us, we're doing so well. The Rome isn't fallen, I promise. Trust me. Trust me, guys. It's going to be fine. And yeah, it has unusual language choices for like a translation from Persian, so it's kind of weird. And also, Khosrow hadn't negotiated with Heraclius when things were going worse for him. So, why now at the first sign of difficulty?
Yeah.
Khosrow probably still wants to just destroy Constantinople. But yeah, in the end, Khosrow had managed to gather all his forces and execute his planned invasion of Anatolia. Although this time it was under a general, because he thought, okay, it's better if I keep the home front safe, let's just make sure everything is fine. And then he contacted the Avar nomads in the west and agreed that they could divide the Roman Empire between them. That would be brilliant. The Avars were quite well equipped for siege warfare, because just like the Turks, they had recently either developed or taken from China the stirrups and trebuchet, which would make war a whole lot more effective, especially against wall cities.
Yeah.
In particular, the great city of Constantinople.
Interesting.
So in March of 626, the great operation began. One army pushed Heraclius towards northern Syria, out of the way so his army couldn't relieve Constantinople, and another one reached Constantinople in July. And another army headed out from the Caucasus to rendezvous with the main force and support them in the siege. The idea being to force Heraclius to rush in defense of Constantinople and then trap him between 2 armies and crush him.
So how did we do?
2 main clashes took place. The problem is that the reinforcement army that was meant to trap Heraclius was intercepted in ambush and destroyed by his forces.
Well.
Not only that, but the general in charge of that army, a man called Shaheen, apparently died of heartbreak shortly afterwards.
Oh, heck.
Khosrow was absolutely furious with this general. Because, what do you mean it's one army? Just kill him. Just do it right. Why have I chosen you as a general otherwise? So Khosrow had the body of Shaheen embalmed and shipped all the way to Ctesiphon, where Khosrow personally whipped him repeatedly, presumably while saying, "How hard is it to kill one army?"
That's so intense. The man is already dead. My dude.
Cyril, I assume I would snap as well
general.
if it's like, we're so close, damn it. Just
send a better general.
You're meant to be a good general in my army. Just do it right.
Do it yourself.
What made it all worse was that the Persian army was much larger than the Roman one, and Heraclius had used a series of guerrilla engagements to slowly break down the invading force and according to Roman sources, a divine hailstorm finally broke the Persian army apart.
Oh, damn. Yeah, you can't do anything against a divine hailstorm.
Heraclius' army then had reasonably free reign to attack the weaker areas of occupied Roman territory, reminding them after several decades of Sassanid dominion that, hey, Rome still exists, you guys. I promise we're working on it.
Don't.
I promise we only have one army, but it'll be okay. We promise it'll be fine.
Actually, just give up. Get some help.
Yes. The second clash was the siege of Constantinople.
Here we go.
On the European side, there were 80,000 Avar nomads attacking the walls of the city, while on the Asian side, the Persians tried to find a way to cross the Bosphorus and attack the city. However, it looks like the Persians didn't really manage to gather a fleet to cross, which could be for a few reasons. Firstly, the Avars should have had enough forces to take Constantinople without Sassanid help. They have 80,000 soldiers, siege weapons galore. They should be able to do this. Come on. We promised you Europe. Just do this for us. Second, another theory is that since Khosrow had offered Europe to the Avars, he's just going to support them from this side and make sure that Heraclius can't reinforce the city, but that's his job, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like his main objectives was either to stop Heraclius from wresting Constantinople or to trap him with the other army, which had now been defeated, but they didn't notice at the time.
I see.
At the same time, they could just set fires to the ancient suburbs of Constantinople and just drive down morale of the city and hope that they surrendered quickly when they see that they're surrounded on all sides and no help is coming.
Mm-hmm.
But the Roman navy was very capable and managed to stop any Persians from crossing the strait and made sure to capture any messengers crossing from one camp to the other, which the Romans would publicly execute in full view of the besiegers. So in the end, on the 9th day of the siege, there was a massive Avar assault on the 6th of August, 626, with the Persians trying to cross the strait en masse in the next day. The problem is that the Romans held strong, and the Avar force retreated from the city on the 11th day of the siege, blaming low morale and lack of supplies.
That will do
All
it.
the while, the Sassanid army just stared powerless from the Asian coast, with the head general probably saying,
Damn you! God damn you all to hell!
Yeah. Very fair.
because it must have been infuriating saying, you have 80,000 soldiers, just fight for more than 3 days. What are you doing, you maniacs? You can have Europe. We're promising you Europe. Just destroy the Romans.
How are we failing?
Come on.
I'm so confused.
I know.
How are we failing
This is
here?
infuriating.
What are we doing
just,
wrong?
Heraclius is just attacking us and doing guerrilla. He's not fighting a fair fight. And he's just like going around and hiding.
What is fair in war? Like,
That's
you know.
fair, but it's infuriating. Yes. And now with Constantinople, we can't cross the sea because the Romans still have a fleet and we don't have one because we didn't have the Mediterranean before this. And so we can't cross to destroy Constantinople. So it's just... yeah.
I hate it here.
Yes.
I'm not a fan.
So when the general Shahbaraz heard of the defeat of the other Persian army, he withdrew to Egypt, where he would keep an eye on the developing situation, with serious mumblings about his loyalty.
Yeah.
This terrible news of complete failure in Anatolia was joined by news that the Turks had crossed the Caucasus and were raiding Azerbaijan in collaboration with Heraclius. The Turks then sent an ultimatum demanding that Khosrow abandon all the occupied Roman lands, return all prisoners, return the true cross, and take their armies back beyond the border or else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Khosrow, of course, refused.
Yeah, of course he did. But, yeah. Oh god, I see our downfall. I see it coming.
Things aren't looking great because Khosrow needs to keep control of a massively enlarged empire with a rapidly shrinking number of armies. So his strategy is to prepare his main cities and key choke points for long sieges to stop the enemy from advancing too quickly and too far.
I hate it here.
Yes. He would try to pin the enemy down and see where they were and then face them in a fair fight, which he could actually win at the end. But the problem is that a massive Turkic army arrived from the steppe, fresh from raids into China that had recently fallen. And they were led by the Turkic Khagan. Apparently this force was so terrifying that all the defenders of the forts that Khosrow had set up just surrendered without a fight.
Guys, no. We were so close.
So the Khagan met with the Roman Emperor outside of Tbilisi and they settled a marriage alliance to break down Iran at last.
I hope the Romans are happy with themselves. They evaded being annihilated off the face of this planet by this much. Like, it truly... by one army. How come people don't talk about this more? It came so close.
It's intense, yes.
Because I've listened to History of the Roman Empire in general, right? Like, I've listened to the Mike Duncan podcast. I've listened to Totalis Rankium. I have an idea, and I do not remember this.
The problem is that this is technically the Byzantine Empire.
I see.
If you want to divide it that way, so a lot of people are like, who cares? It's medieval Roman Empire.
See,
we
so
don't
it doesn't
care.
even, like, count anymore. Right, because we're in
it's
the
like how many people don't even know about Justinian, which is like, he's cool.
I mean, I knew about Justinian.
Outside the...
But I did study Byzantium.
But like most people don't.
In school,
exactly.
So, yeah. Oh, boy.
So yes, time for a showdown, Serial, because the forces of the Turks and the forces of the Romans pillaged the Caucasus for half a year, sacking several settlements in brutal fashion, which compelled several more to surrender to avoid the same fate. But there was a glimmer of hope, Serial.
Oh, there was.
Because far, far in the east, Tang China is now a thing. And they are threatening the eastern border of the Turks.
Oh boy.
So they have to rush far to the east because, oh no, China's whole again. Oh no, we need to defend against this.
Oh my god.
So what we have left is Heraclius in the Caucasus in autumn, and now it's going to be winter soon. Heraclius needs to retreat to Anatolia to regroup. Khosrow still has one army in Mesopotamia and has another large army in Egypt. If he can spend the winter regrouping his soldiers, they can find a way to fight back and push Heraclius back where he belongs in Anatolia. At least build a perimeter now that the Turks are otherwise engaged.
Mm-hmm.
But Serial, can you guess what happened?
I don't know anymore. Like, clearly we are on a losing streak. So, like, is Khosrow still sane, or, like, has he given up? Because I would have.
I mean, he has massively whipped a man who was already dead, so...
Yeah.
He has snapped a little bit.
He's coping.
So I guess he's not in a chill mood. But yeah. The problem is, Serial, that Heraclius decides he's not going to play by the rules.
Of course not.
Heraclius isn't going home for winter.
No, dude.
It's starting to get into December, so he marches towards Ctesiphon.
Are you nuts? You can't have war in winter. We have established this. I hope he loses.
That is Khosrow's point exactly.
I hope he loses. Like, just out of his hubris.
Because Serial marches south, trying to deal a knockout blow to Khosrow. There is the last Roman army versus the penultimate Persian army. And they face each other just outside the old Assyrian capital of Nineveh, where Cyaxares, our third king, fought a triumphant battle at the start of our podcast.
Yeah. Something tells me this is not gonna go.
And it is the 12th of December. It is winter. They decide who would win the war. The fighting was grueling and lasted for the whole day. Most of the Sassanid officers and most of the Roman officers were killed rather than retreat on either side.
Yeah, at this
the
point,
fight was terrible.
Like, yeah.
This is the end. Here we either win or we die.
Mortior Invictus.
What happens. Exactly. Death before defeat.
Yeah.
But by the end of the day, we are told by the Roman sources that Heraclius killed a giant Persian that was defending a bridge. And in the end, the Romans managed to have the field of battle.
Yeah, of course.
The Persian army is defeated. They're forced to retreat, massively crippled. The Roman army has lost so many soldiers. There's very few of them left, but the Persian army is almost entirely destroyed.
I hate it here.
So the road to Ctesiphon is open. For the first time since Julian, 300-ish years ago, it's open. And this led to a worsening situation in the empire, with taxes bleeding the people dry because, we're getting less and less territory under our control. And Khosrow, according to Christian sources, again, has started persecuting Christians in an attempt to stop the Romans this way. But again, his favorite wife is Christian. He hasn't persecuted them before. Either he's entirely snapped and is just lashing out.
Yeah.
Yeah, either he's just lashing out and says, oh, whatever will help. Or it's just Roman propaganda saying, oh, no, trust us. He was horrible all along. Also, a bunch of floods with the beginning of the new year and the snows melting. These floods broke through a lot of the dam works in Mesopotamia, which contributed to making a lot of people's lives worse. Because now, there's nobody to repair them because there's Romans in Mesopotamia. So Khosrow was in a nearby Mesopotamian city when he heard the news, and he did everything he could to rush to Ctesiphon, which he had not visited since his crowning before Bahram Chobin, because there was a prophecy that Ctesiphon would be its doom. And so Khosrow rushed to Ctesiphon with his family and the treasury before the Romans got there, so he could man the defenses himself.
Mm-hmm.
The Romans occupied Khosrow's palace, recapturing many Roman trophies kept there and destroying the rest, including the king's menagerie and paradise garden. Heraclius apparently made a peace offer to Khosrow, asking him to stop the fighting, and I quote, before the fire consumed everything.
Yeah.
But Khosrow's been fighting for 25 years. He can't just go back to the status quo. He has to have something to show. Otherwise, it can't have all been for nothing. And he still has an army in Egypt. They can still come and save him if they just get to him in time.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Although the nobles began to grumble at this point, saying that, is Khosrow really able to do this? Can he handle the situation? He does have a son, Shiroe. He was the former heir that was imprisoned. Maybe he'd do a good job. He was the grandson of the Emperor Maurice, supposedly. Maybe he'd get a better deal with the Romans. Who knows?
A lot of who knows,
Yeah.
A lot of I wonder.
Yeah, they're just nobles asking questions, Sarah.
Sure.
They're just being perfectly sincere and honest and fine.
What is the problem with that? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. In the meantime, the army defeated at Nineveh arrived to the capital only a few days before Heraclius. Many important bridges across the cities, many canals were cut down to slow the Romans, but the Romans just simply started devastating the most fertile region of the empire, trying to force the Persians to face them, with the only possible reinforcements being either in the far east of the empire, guarding against Turks, or in the far west in Egypt, essentially the army that had tried to take Constantinople. And at this point, a rumor spread that the commander of the west, Sharbaraz, who you'll want to remember, had come to a deal with Heraclius to end the war and abandon Khosrow.
Did he know?
Now, was this a real deal, or was this the Romans spreading misinformation to reduce everybody's morale and say, no, there's no help coming, you should just give up? We're not sure. It's kind of unclear. We have the Roman source that tells us this, but we also don't have any concrete evidence.
I see.
There is also some truth in it, because a later tradition, which again is later, might not be true, tells us that Khosrow was paranoid about the defeat in Constantinople and had ordered the general killed and his second in command to take that place. And so that caused a rebellion.
It would make sense.
We don't know if he did that.
For him to do this, because honestly, this is an unbelievable defeat.
Yeah, exactly. You're saying,
I would also
how
lose
did
my
you
mind.
fail this? How? Come on. We were there. We were at a step from Constantinople, and now they're in front of Ctesiphon. What do you mean?
Yeah.
This must be on purpose. You can't be this incompetent.
Listen, all of this, I feel like it started going down because we wanted someone else to do our job for us. And as always, it just does not pay off, because then it puts us in a weaker situation. And also, this time we didn't even really need it. We just did it because that way we don't have to go all the way there. But why do we keep relying on other people to then owe them favor. Like it.
Well, Khosrow isn't a general. The only time he fought, he lost
I don't
against
mean
Bahram
no.
Children.
I mean like.
Oh, right.
I don't mean a particular person like telling a general to do their job. I mean like we did with the Turks before, and like we did with the steppe people before. Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have a fleet to cross. It makes sense at the time, but also, the Avars
like
don't
we
really
always
have.
do the same mistake.
That's fair, yeah. But it worked well with the Hephthalites. The Hephthalites were the great threat for 100 years, and they were wiped off the face of the earth. Why wouldn't it work again? And this time we have the Mediterranean to save us from the Avars in case they get any ideas. So, it made sense at the time, but So yeah, but a third option for the general of the West, Shah-Baraz, is that he was just waiting to see what happened. He was waiting to see if Khosrow can handle it and defeat Heraclius, well then Shah-Baraz can rush in at the last moment and say, "Oh my goodness, thank goodness you're safe. I just came as soon as I heard, but communication's so difficult." And if Khosrow loses, he was like, I don't care, I have an army. I can do whatever I like.
Yeah, true.
So that might be an option. And he was defeated in Constantinople, or maybe some combination of all of these. Khosrow had tried to have him killed, but Shah-Baraz decided, I'll just see how things develop. I can just be the savior and save my neck, and we'll figure things out later.
Unbelievable.
So this news triggered the last step of the conspiracy. The nobles heard that no help was coming. The Romans were around there. So they sent a message to Heraclius saying, "Hey, we're about to stage a coup. Maybe just don't attack Ctesiphon for a few days and
maybe just like hide for a minute and then come back."
Yeah, just relax for a moment. We'll be in touch. Don't worry. Hopefully we can negotiate something that would be advantageous to the both of us.
So slimy.
So, Serial, on the night between the 23rd and the 24th of February of 628, Khosrow woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of the guards proclaiming, "All hail King Shiroe." Khosrow looked around his palace, and there were no servants, nor were there any guards. He was alone.
Oh boy. Panic immediately.
Yes. Not only that, he could see in the streets all the prisoners from all the prisons were being released and flooding through the street.
I'm in danger.
Yes. Khosrow tried to rush to the stables to find a horse that would bring him to safety, but he found that there were no horses left. They had all been taken away by the conspirators, and Khosrow was alone. So, according to the Shahnameh, when Khosrow realized that the end had come, alone in his palace without anybody around him, he slowly and methodically dressed himself in his finest armor and walked into the palace gardens, where he sat under a tree and waited for his murderers to come.
That is so solemn.
Yes.
Wow.
Very intense.
I need a minute.
Yeah.
This is such a... Whew. Damn.
Also tries to go out with dignity because
What
he's
a way
realized
to
it's
go,
over.
Yeah.
It's just, if
I
I'm
did
gonna
so
die, I might
well.
as well go out with
That's
dignity.
wild
Yeah.
that this all
He got
happened
so
in one
close.
life. Like,
Exactly. He is so cool, but it's just like, oh, my dude.
movies
I'm
about
sorry.
him when?
I know.
Because this is an
there should
incredible,
be.
like, sad ending sort of...
It's amazing.
Whoa. This would make such a good movie.
Yeah.
I know I say this about, like, so many of these emperors, but, like, like, it's true. It has the
Yeah, that's
potential
the
for,
point.
like, huge cinematographical vibes. And I like it.
Yeah, you could make a great series out of his life. There's so many parts in it that there's just so much to go through.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when the soldiers sent to capture Khosrow arrived in the garden and saw him sitting solemnly, dressed in his finest armor, just waiting for them, they couldn't go through with it when they saw him like this.
Oh.
And it actually took the head of the conspiracy to come and take Khosrow personally to prison.
Wow. They were like, this doesn't feel right, guys.
Yeah, this feels bad. The imprisoned Khosrow was kept under armed guard for 4 days, during which his ministers came to visit him and tried to justify the coup to him. And we'll
That's
get into that a
wild.
little
Being
bit
like,
later.
don't get mad.
So, like, don't be mad. I mean, we did this
This
for the
made
good of the
sense.
Empire, right?
Yeah.
We weren't doing this because we were just, not very good at our jobs and we just made it because you were never going to make peace with the Romans. This was the deal. This was not going to happen. I'll get to the accusations later on, but yeah, that's it.
Oh, I'm sure it's great.
Yeah. On the 25th, the next day, Shirwe was officially proclaimed as King Kavad II in Ctesiphon.
I see. Who is this guy?
Well, Cyril, you remember, I mentioned this last time, but Khosrow had two main wives that we mentioned. There was Maria, the daughter of Maurice, supposedly, and her son Shirwe, who was in house arrest. Because Khosrow's favorite wife, Shirin, had a son called Mardan Shah that was now the heir and was Khosrow's favorite son. So there was this court intrigue that was going on. So this one discarded son is now made King of Kings. And what do you think this new King of Kings' first act is?
Killing his father, probably.
Not yet, Sario.
Oh.
He decides to kill all the members of his family.
Yep.
All his siblings, so that all his brothers at least, because, women don't count.
Yeah.
But he killed all his brothers to make sure that nobody would question his succession. He is the King of Kings. There can be no threat to his power.
Yeah. We've seen this before.
Yes. And in one last act of cruelty, he decided to bring Khosrow's favorite son and heir, Mardan Shah, to be executed before his father.
Why would you do that? Like, that is... Okay, so this guy, really has it out for Khosrow and hates him. Because that is not necessary.
I assume there were a lot of daddy issues, because...
Yeah.
The whole being replaced as heir and all that. Yeah, I'm assuming Shirwe had those problems.
Because that's just pure cruelty. Like, there's no other point to that.
Yeah, that's just very harsh. There was then a mock trial where Khosrow was accused of killing his father, King Hormizd IV. How dare you kill a king?
Right.
Nobody should ever do that. How dare you kill your father? What monster would do such a thing?
Mm-hmm.
He was accused of abusing his sons, not treating them equally.
Ah, yes.
Cough, cough, including me, Shirwe.
Mm-hmm.
Taking too many wives, but only paying attention to his favorite Shirin and not Shirwe's mother, Maria.
Yep.
Mistreating nobles. He had killed his uncles, who had supported him all that time. And he tried a coup? I mean, what kind of monster would do this? No king worth his salt would do this terrible thing. He was accused of excessive taxation, an endless war that he wouldn't make peace
Accused of excessive taxation. Damn.
Yes. And then finally, in gratitude towards Maurice all those years ago, how dare you kill Theodosius, who was the heir, and you went to take Rome back. You're an ingrate who just reached too far. And for that reason, Khosrow, King of Kings, you are sentenced to death.
This is such bull.
Yes, very much so.
Glad we all agree.
At the end of the 4 days, on the 28th of February 628, Khosrow himself was executed by being shot full of arrows, and soon after, negotiations of peace were opened with the Romans.
We were so close.
Yes.
We almost touched the sky.
Yes.
The sun was right there.
Yes, the sun was right there, if only my wings weren't made of wax.
Yep. Oh, so disappointing.
And yeah, surprisingly for Shirwe, Khosrow's body was then taken to the royal tomb, being given his royal dignity despite being overthrown.
Okay, that's nice. I mean, they better, because what he did was incredible. Like, you have to admit.
Yeah, we'll find out next time how Shirwe will rule after this start to his reign. But yeah, thus ends the life of Khosrow.
Oh my god!
Who unfortunately can't be called Khosrow the Great, because there's another great Khosrow, but Khosrow
and also
the
because
Victorious.
of his incredible fall right at the end.
Yeah, it's just, my dude.
How long did it take? Like, how many years? Like, what is the comparison? Like, how many years was the first episode versus the second episode? You don't have to give me the actual number of years if you still want to, like, for me to guess.
The war lasted 25 years from start to finish. Or close enough, about 25
I was going
years.
to say, like, a percentage. I want to know, like, how much of his career was victory and how much was downfall. Like, I'm just curious.
I mean, essentially, there was a 10-year period at the peak.
Okay.
When he had Egypt, he had the Levant, that was all
That's
his.
very long too.
Which is also really impressive because there are a bunch of people who, for basically a generation in these Roman or former Roman territories, lived life as Persian subjects.
Yeah.
And there was that guy, Mansur ibn Sarjun, who just got promoted a few times in his life and, had children, and his son started working, and it was a whole thing.
Yeah,
and it was
that
all
was so
under
cool,
the new
yeah.
regime.
Mm-hmm.
And incidentally, I'll mention this later on, but our poor boy Mansur will get tortured by Heraclius when he comes back for having collaborated with the Persians.
Damn.
Which will lead him to do a different action later on.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame him for it. Because if somebody's going to torture you, I'm not going to be very loyal to them. And yeah, so that is the end of Khosrow's life, Serial. Any thoughts or comments upon this sad end? Because I have some poetry before we rate him. Some of it is mine, some of it is Persian.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to hear it.
So we have an excerpt from the Shahnameh, which ends Khosrow's life, where it says, "O great Khosrow, great in your majesty, in warlike pride and magnanimity, where is that greatness now, your high renown, your glory and your throne and royal crown? Count Persia as a ruin, as the lair of lions and leopards, look now and despair. You were the best of Sasan's line. No one will ever reign again as you have done. And as your seed degenerates, this land degenerates beneath an alien hand." So things are gloomy.
Yeah.
And I decided to add my own in by noticing some parallels with an Italian author called Alessandro Manzoni, who dedicated these verses to Napoleon in his poem The 5th of May, but I thought it was appropriate and matches. And I quote, "All these he knew, untold renown, more glorious for the peril past. Flight, then victory at last. The pains of exile doffed the crown, twice humbled to the very dust, twice gifted with an empire's trust." Because, well, both of them were deposed twice, and both of them got to be emperor twice, but it ended poorly for each.
Yeah. Almost like this is a thing.
Yeah. And if I may paraphrase another section of the poem with my modifications. "From Elbrus to the pyramids, from Oxus to the Nile, sure sign his vivid lightnings would again foreshadow the tempest that would be, sent from Bosphorus to Yemen, his winged bolt from sea to sea." And to end again with the original, was this true glory? Posterity will declare that arduous verdict. And well, Serial, we're posterity, and so we get to judge him now.
Let's declare the verdict.
Our first category is final moments. How interesting was his death?
Amazing.
Going to be
10 out of
dignified
10.
to the end, being executed by his son after being accused of endless evils, having his own child killed in front of him just out of spite.
Yeah.
And
It
then
was
being
amazing.
shot full of arrows while the empire crumbles around him.
Tough to beat.
Yeah, I'm thinking, why not a 10? Because it's just,
Yep.
it's personal, it's dramatic. You have the scene of him going out like a king despite everything being lost. I don't know why I wouldn't give it a 10. I don't know if you can think of any reasons, but yeah, we get everything, I think.
I think it should be a 10.
All right, with a 10 out of 10, that makes a 10 out of 10 for final moments being our highest score.
It
in
was
this
just
category.
so poetic and so like story-like, and of course we don't know if this is true, but like I don't see why it wouldn't be, because they made the effort of like emptying the entire palace and doing this while
Yeah, it was him alone and there was
Yeah,
nobody, and he was
so
just like, oh, well.
clearly like
Yeah,
he's
he
like,
tried to escape, but he saw there were no horses. I can't do this.
Yeah.
He just understood this is the end.
Yeah.
I might as well just make it epic.
go with dignity. Yeah.
So yeah, congratulations, Khosrow. You had the best death. Although I'm sure that's a little consolation.
Yeah, I don't know if that's great, but you know.
Our next category is battle hardness. How good was he at war and fighting? multiple parts to this.
Mm-hmm.
Because, let's just go chronologically. He starts out being defeated by Bahram Choban. He comes back with the Romans, and this time he wins a battle. He takes the throne again. He is then defeated several times by Bestam, his uncle. And he only manages to win that civil war because his uncle is assassinated. Then comes the Roman War. He wins glorious victories. It's hard at the beginning, but eventually once they break through, they just keep conquering. They conquer so much territory. They go all the way to Egypt. We hadn't had Egypt in so long. But you could also argue that part of this victory was because they were starting out the war by saying, hey, look, we have Theodosius, just let us in. And maybe that made people more likely to surrender.
Yeah, that's a strategy.
But then we get to the second half of the war where Heraclius is sort of running circles around the armies and sort of poking them and trying to get them off balance and then isolating them and then defeating them and doing
This
a whole
was just
thing.
bad.
That was, yeah, that...
I don't know how
was
much
just
of
hard.
it was luck because, in war, part of it is strategy, part of it is strength and numbers, and part of it is just pure dumb luck.
Yeah, it was also Heraclius just having a smaller, more maneuverable army and Khosrow expecting a traditional fight and just being chased around, and that just didn't work.
But he also couldn't
was
adapt.
Just very impressive. Exactly. I mean, yeah. Again, Khosrow himself isn't a warrior king. He doesn't fight in the front lines often. He does have some duels recorded with Bahram Choban, but he's generally surrounded by many guards, and he generally is saved by angels when that happens. So Khosrow isn't a warrior king. He gives the task to somebody else and says, okay, I trust you. You're a skilled general. You can do this.
You're good at what you do. Do it for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
As you should. This is not a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. If that's not your skill, you should delegate. That's fair. And yeah, then he has that defeat in Anatolia with the second army that was meant to trap Heraclius. That one's gone. The siege of Constantinople, it's not like a defeat, but it's not a victory. Essentially, the Persian force is made to retreat because the Avars just leave. Maybe they couldn't hold their confederation. Maybe it was there were 20 tribal chiefs that all agreed that they could do this for like a week. And then after that, they had to go elsewhere. Maybe they couldn't feed themselves. Who knows? They didn't have the logistics, maybe.
Yeah.
But they just left. And, Shabaraz, the general, was just stuck saying, well, damn. Okay, fine, whatever. I suppose we just lose this one.
Yeah.
And then finally, we have the Battle of Nineveh, the last battle. Well, without being too much a spoiler, the Battle of Nineveh in 627 is the last battle between Rome and Persia.
I see.
And that one, again, it's hard fought. We give everything we have, but we lose at the end. So that's harsh. I don't know how you want to rate this battle hardness, because the highs are very high. It's conquer 2/3 of the Roman Empire high. But the lows are like, you just got crushed. And now...
Yeah.
Our empires respectively have one army each, both of which are in bad shape.
And I don't think he mostly, he did so well in the first half or 2/3 of his empire, but it wasn't without struggle. It was not just straight up, I don't know, Alexander levels of everything just works. And then
it's not just easily
apart.
winning every battle and, brilliant. No, he actually
and he also was not
hard
a military king himself. He just had good generals
right.
and good strategy. So I don't think it should go that high. And also the defeat is so intense.
It's just,
Listen, he will get good grades in something else, but I don't think this is it.
Yeah, this is part of the complicated life of Khosrow because, again, if he died 10 years before he did, then greatest king who ever lived, and people would be speculating, if only he'd lived longer, then maybe the empire would have been saved.
Absolutely, yeah.
But, he sort of has the opposite of Alexander's problem. He lives long enough to find out.
To see everything fall down, yeah.
Yeah, so it's maybe Alexander wouldn't have been able to hold the empire together and it would have all fallen apart. But we don't know because he just died at 30. While Khosrow gets to live to an older age, despite his asbestos hand cloth.
Yep.
But still, he manages to lose. So, Yeah, how would you rate battle hardness? I think my starting point is like a 6 because I think it's worth recognizing the great points he achieved. But also, it's not that he's an uncomplicated winner. Like, he is Khosrow the Victorious.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't emphasize that myself.
I think the Victorious makes sense knowing his path. The problem is that we also know the end of it.
Yeah, that's right. Which is why, by the way, I was very happy that you hadn't heard of him before, because that makes the narrative of the episode
I don't know
nicer.
Anything about most parts of history.
Fair, but you've heard of Justinian, though.
Yeah, because I had him in class.
I don't know why nobody ever has this. To be fair, there is an important chapter in the next page of the history book that's coming up, but we'll get to it when we get to it.
Okay.
There's a reason the podcast ends in like 7 episodes, but yeah. So yeah, battle hardness. What is your opinion?
I think a 6 is fair, because I think it still should be in the like above 5 territory, because overall it was very impressive, but also it wasn't only due to him, and also there was a horrible defeat at the end. But we can't just ignore how well it went at the beginning to do for the Empire what it did. So you can't only focus on that.
Yeah, actually, since we'd mentioned the parallel, I'm curious what we gave Antiochus III. Because Antiochus III was
similar.
a warrior king, and he did...
Yep.
I think he had an easier time at the start of his reign.
Yeah.
Yes. So Antiochus III, I give an 8, you gave a 9.
Okay, then it makes sense.
I think I'm more convinced with a 6.
Yes.
I think, a 6 is good, knowing that comparison.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so with a 6 and a 6, he gets a 12 out of 20 for battle hardness. Our next category is scheminess. How good was he at plots and manipulations? I think there's merit here. Because, well, even before he was King of Kings, he was part of a plot to overthrow and imprison his father, and possibly execute him. The question here is, now that we've known him, now that we've seen all his life, do you believe it was his uncles behind the plot? Or do you believe it was Khosrow actually just trying to make himself king? Because when we were going through it, you thought it was the uncles, or at least that the funniest option was that it was the uncles trying to ingratiate themselves with Bahram Chobin and stop the rebellion and make sure everything was fine. But now that you know Khosrow, do you think he was responsible for overthrowing his father or not?
This was complex, right? Because this was a whole, like, every side has a different way of telling it situation.
Yeah, everybody had a motive, everybody had
We
a
talked
reason.
about
It could either be the uncles trying to be regents for him, it could be the uncles trying to befriend Bahram Chobin, it could be Khosrow just trying to become king because Hormizd failed. It's Khosrow's time, which would be an eerie echo of how Khosrow ends, to be fair. So that's part of it.
I don't think it was only the uncles. I think it might have been him and the uncles conspiring together.
Fair.
And like seizing the opportunity.
So that's part of his scheminess. Then Khosrow loses that part of the war. He goes to the Romans and he asks the Roman emperor, hey, can you lend me an army to get the throne?
Oh my god.
That's pretty schemy. That's very, manipulate and say, P.S. we'll give you stuff. You disapprove of it, but
is stooping very low.
Yeah.
I don't approve.
But yeah, then he got the throne back. He became King of Kings. He sent assassins to kill Bahram Chobin when he was in the land of the Turks. That's part of it.
He shouldn't have been king anyway, so...
Yeah, exactly.
Bahram Chobin.
He then orchestrated a coup against his own government, against his uncles. It worked for one uncle. The other triggered a civil war. So that's pretty schemy.
Yeah.
He then had the wife of the uncle and the sister of Bahram Chobin kill the rebelling uncle, the rebelling Bestam, to end the civil war in his favor. So, great.
True.
He won that in exchange for a marriage, and he got an extra wife. Cool. Yep. And then we have one that's pretty big, depending on if it's true or not. Because do you think Theodosius was the actual son of Maurice, or was he just some guy Khosrow had pulled out of a hat saying, oh no, trust me, I'm totally legitimately invading Roman territory. Like, do you think Khosrow was honestly trying to avenge Maurice at the start? Or do you think that from the beginning it was just, no, I'm trying to conquer the Roman Empire? Or at least, get as much as I can.
I don't remember what I thought at the time. It's hard to do these things in 2 episodes.
Because at the time, it kind of makes sense because Theodosius had been sent over to ask for help from Khosrow to exchange the favor. So maybe that was it. But... And also several people recognized Theodosius.
The Romans did give him an army. Like,
yeah, exactly.
We were on the... Yeah.
So Theodosius could say, hey, my father gave this to you. There we go.
Yeah.
And whether or not Theodosius was the real Roman emperor, he disappears.
Yeah, conveniently.
Whether it's because he caught a bad fever in the middle of the war and Khosrow thought, oh, well, I'm already halfway to Constantinople, I might as well continue.
Yeah.
Or because he, quote-unquote, caught a fever. And, oh no, I guess Khosrow has to conquer the Roman Empire now.
Oh, poor
That's
poor
another
guy.
bit of
It seems like he's
scheminess.
not going to pull through.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this was obviously helpful, so...
Yeah. I think he's one of the more schemy emperors that we've had so far.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I don't think...
He does
I'm
a lot, depending on how
craving
much you
someone
think
who will
him.
top Darius, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's complicated.
Nobody has gotten that close.
No, but yeah.
But I love me a king
Khosrow's
that
trying.
does well for the empire in general and that rises above his opportunities, and especially if he does so by being really smart and not necessarily only just having numbers on his side or being really strong. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I mean, Khosrow, he was very lucky. Absolutely fair. But a lot of the occasions, he didn't just accept to be a prince in exile in Rome and say, oh, well, this is too difficult, I'll just be fine. No, he went to the Roman and said, hey, listen, I want the empire, I'll get it. And then when he was about to lose the civil war, he didn't just, again, run away and say, oh, no, save me. He killed everybody he needed to kill and got stuff done, which, again, ruthless, but very schemy. So how much would you rate that? Because we have different elements. I'd say, let's just sum them up. We have overthrowing his father, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Including possibly giving the blame to his uncles, a la Antiochus the third. Then we have going to gather Roman support. That's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
We have the killing Bahram Chobin. We have the killing his uncle, rebelling. We have the general coup against his uncles going on. We have the Theodosius stuff. Who knows? And then we have the maybe killing Theodosius stuff.
Yep.
I think adding those up, I think a 7 is pretty good.
Yeah, I was thinking.
I think
it
just
goes
numerically
pretty high,
adding
but,
each. I don't know if you think one of these is worth, double points because it's just so impressive.
No, because there's some actually overlap and there's some that I'm not sure about. That they're like actual, Yeah. So, I think a 7 is good.
Okay.
That would be my choice.
So there we go. With a 7 and a 7, we get a 14 out of 20 for scheminess. Our next category is shock factor. How shocking was this man? Well, he asked the Romans for help? Excuse me? What? How did he what? And he gave away like a big chunk of the empire for Roman help? That was intense at the start. You were sighing heavily about him at the start. That was pretty shocking to you.
True.
In person.
Mm-hmm.
He murders a bunch of Armenian nobles at a feast all at the same time. That's fun,
Yeah,
good for him, I
anytime
guess.
nobles get murdered, I am just happy.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Come at me.
Yeah. Imagine living in a country where nobles still exist. Cough, cough.
I don't have to imagine.
Yeah.
And nobody voted for these people. Anyway.
But anyway, we did that. Then he has the possibly killing his father. That's kind of shocking. We have the essentially being so friendly to Christians that people accuse him of being maybe a Christian, and he has to really put a fine point on, no. It's just my favorite wife is Christian and I love her, so maybe back off. So that's part of it. We then have the shock factor of refusing the Roman offer of absolute surrender and saying, no, I can take you. It's the same thing as if, like, imagine if Alexander had said the cool line of, oh, yes, I'd also accept this peace treaty if I were you.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
lost. And I was like,
that
sounds a lot less cool now.
Yeah.
Oh, well, damn.
I mean, it sounded cool at the time because he was doing great.
Yeah. So, it's cool that
And he
Khosrow
didn't
did
lose
that.
immediately, right? Or do I have my timeline wrong?
No, Khosrow took like a decade for Khosrow to lose.
Yeah,
after that.
exactly.
It
So,
was just
like,
the
the
was
line
doing very
held
well.
up. It's
Yeah,
not because of that treaty that he fell.
No.
It's because apparently his generals couldn't destroy one army
Yeah, exactly.
for some reason.
Speaking of which, we have him having the body of his general embalmed so he could just whip it when it got to the capital. Because how hard is it to defeat one Roman army? Come on.
Yeah, I get it. You need to let your anger out somehow. It's just an odd choice. Like, the man is dead, but
I mean, yeah, he can't execute him again, so it's just like, well, I might as well just let out my anger. So there's that for shocking, and then we have a bunch of stories of him being kind of cruel-ish. Like, he doesn't seem to be gratuitously cruel, but a lot of ones are like, oh, he's the great king, and oh, this messenger can remain alive because he found a fun way to tell me my horse died, but I would have killed him otherwise.
He's been needlessly cruel most of the time.
No, it doesn't look like it.
And I don't think, like, when he was accused of persecution and things like that, I don't think that was true. Because it wouldn't make sense, because he didn't persecute people before.
No, exactly. Before, he doesn't
So-
persecute Christians, he's just very nice to them. And again, if he was trying to persecute Christians, he would have done what Heraclius did with the Sacred Fire Temple. He would have, burnt the cross and said,
exactly.
I have the pieces of the true cross, I'll burn them. But he was like, no, I have them here for the Christians of my city to enjoy and worship. So
Yeah.
there's a reason they're still around after the war. So that's part of it. And then we have he's apparently very indulgent. He is a fan of luxuries and enjoying himself.
Yeah.
And then we also have the story with the Prophet Muhammad where, did it happen? It's unclear. We have no direct evidence of it. Although I think there is a relic somewhere which is of dubious legitimacy historically of being the letter to Khosrow from the Prophet. But is that real? Is it not? Who knows? And then we have the massive inscription that was 180 meters wide compared to Darius' 25-meter wide one. That's pretty intense.
I'm excited to see it.
And yeah, I think that's the majority of the shock factor that we have. Yeah, I don't know if you want to put that it's shocking that he was so tolerant and basically just kept all the old institutions in place and was very Cyrus-like in his conquest. Or if you just think, yeah, no, that's fine, I'm happy.
I mean, he's also not the only king that has done that.
Oh, to be fair, he is one of the rare kings that has been very tolerant.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He's the most tolerant king we've had so far. He was so tolerant that he had to, put a fine point on, no, trust me, I'm not converting, I'm actually just respecting these people.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you rate this for shock factor? What do you think?
I don't tend to rate people really high. There's been only a couple of kings where we were like, whoa, what the hell?
We rated the recent kings quite high, to be fair. We're on a high shock factor streak. Ever since Kavad started his communist revolution, they've made decisions, yes.
I'm so unsure. I'd go for a 5, maybe?
Only a 5? I was
mostly very shocked that he did so well.
Yeah, fair.
But not about any particular decision, just about the entire outcome.
Yeah. I think his whole deal is shocking enough.
Yeah. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should go to a 7
I'm not
or so.
sure what
I'll go for a 7 then.
Go for a 7?
Convinced me. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I'll match you with a 7 as well. I think he's slightly more shocking than Bahram Chobin. Despite Bahram proclaiming himself the Messiah and all that, Khosrow still did do a lot of wild stuff. So with a 7 and a 7, we get a 14 out of 20 for shock factor. Our next category is Aaron's shine. How good was he for the Empire in general and Iran in particular? Again, story of two halves. If he had died 10 years earlier, brilliant. Undisputed 10. He had done everything perfectly and was consolidating the empire and had expanded it, basically doubled it in size. Wow, incredible. Problem is that now the war is going very poorly. We still haven't made peace. We'll find out in the next episodes how the peace goes, but we're still at war, and it's not brilliant, and we only have one real army left in the empire, and it's under the control of a guy that we can't really trust. We don't know if he's just waiting to see what happens. So, and also, he was overthrown, and all of his sons except one have been killed, which isn't great for the succession.
Yeah.
So that's problematic. But then he was great for the tolerance in the empire. He expanded people's rights. He ruled it justly. He made sure infrastructure was properly controlled. He did a good job overall. And it's just, yeah, how do you rate this? Because also, I'll give you very small spoilers on how the war ends. Just so we can evaluate his legacy and what the status of the war is at the end. One of the peace treaties that is negotiated is to have all of Armenia, basically all of the Caucasus, and all the lands east of the Euphrates River goes to Iran.
Okay.
This would be its largest expansion if he hadn't conquered everything the day before. So if you looked at it on a map, he's starting with an empire where he's given up a bunch of land and he's taken so much more and he's actually pushed the Romans back. That's just if you look at a map with no context, though.
Yeah.
He has spent 25 years fighting a war where he could have won all the Roman Empire, and then he gets a good peace treaty, but it's not history-changing peace treaty. So even on paper, it's like, and now all these resources that have gone into the war, it was a massive war, and what do we have to show for it? Yeah, a few extra cities, but it's not Egypt.
Yeah.
So it's kind of questionable for his Ehrenschein. And again, he himself, while he was ruling very well. He is known as a paragon of justice and ability. And he knows when to delegate, how to delegate. He tries to limit the power of the nobles. He chooses an heir which is capable. He does a good job. But again, by the end of the war, Mesopotamia has been invaded for the first time in about 300 years, and Ctesiphon is under siege. He is overthrown. The line of succession is messy. His son Kavad II Kavad Shiroe, is now in charge, and the line of succession is Kavad has an 8-year-old son. And hopefully that's enough. But hope nothing terrible happens to the empire.
It's hard,
so it's a complicated Ehrenschein, yeah.
It went really well and then really badly. So, do you consider that peak? How tumultuous were these times for the people living during this era? Obviously, during the good times, during the peak, I'm sure it was great.
I think, again, since he's my favorite character, since he's my boy, Mansur ibn Sarjun can be a good example. There were disruptions during the original conquest and the start of the war, but then for most of the 20 years, he's just doing his job and living his life as normal. He just has coins with Khosrow on them now instead of the Romans. And that's just how he lives. And he's more tolerated than the Romans because of his specific brand of Christianity. So that's cool. But then when the war changes and Heraclius recaptures this territory, Mansur is tortured for having collaborated with the Persians. And that's not fun. And, the Romans coming back, sack a bunch of cities. How much is it the Romans' fault versus Khosrow not being able to defend his new empire?
Yeah,
I like the guy, but
it on the Romans because
sure. So, again, had he just died 10 years ago, then 10 out of 10.
Right? Damn.
To be fair, he also did receive the empire in a civil war under Bahram Chobin.
Yeah.
We should remember he got the empire when he was like a late teen.
Yeah.
And it was in civil war and it was a mess.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of stable and the Turks are kind of not really a threat anymore. They're sort of away. We've stabilized those borders in the east. And in the west, we got more land.
Are you talking yourself into it?
Yeah, like, I think the Empire is better off, but not much better off. I'm questioning if to give him a 6 or a 7, based on the fact that he was just so good at ruling, and he did give his people several decades of prosperity and good rule.
Yeah.
So that's positive. I don't know if it's 6 or 7. What do you think?
I want to go for a 7 just because I had such a good feel when things were going well. But the way that the Empire ends means we're not going to be doing that well anymore. So it's not lasting. So the impact, through the ages is not,
Yeah, I mean,
it's not
to
really
follow
there.
up on that point, the peace treaty I mentioned, we're not sure about the details because of the capital H history that's going to happen soon.
Oh,
so in the end, it doesn't matter.
Okay, good.
We don't know because it doesn't matter at the end.
Yeah.
But that's not Khosrow's.
Also, I was gonna say, to your previous point, if he hadn't, if he had just, been stable, he received an empire in shambles. Overall, he made things better.
Yes.
So I think I will go for a 7 because I like him. So, you don't have to match me. I'm just saying.
I know what's coming, and I'm wondering if to blame, for the audience who knows what's coming, I know what's coming, and I'm wondering if to blame him for it, or if he couldn't possibly know. That's not his fault. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for being such a good ruler.
You have the gift of prophecy? I don't.
I have the gift of foresight, yeah.
You are Prometheus, I'm Epimetheus. So,
yes.
In
see
my
a man
eyes,
who gets to make it home, but it's no longer you.
Wasn't that Theseus?
Yes.
But yeah, I think I will give him a 7 because I think he deserves it.
I'll go with a 7 as well.
The fact that things will get worse, that's...
reward good rulership. So yeah, with
exactly.
a 7 and a 7, he gets a 14 out of 20 for Aaron Shai.
Good. As he should.
Our next category is Face of Faces. What do you think this man looked like? And he has 3 crowns. You have your Pokemon evolution. I'll send it to you.
Oh my god. Okay.
And then we have a bunch of different portraits, Ariel. I have 3 mountain reliefs and 1 Roman coin where he looks like a Roman because I thought it was fun.
Oh.
One of the coins he released in Roman territory because,
Mm-hmm.
he just kept the old style. Okay, so Serial has finished their drawing. Let me pick it up and I'll describe it to you all. Oh, wow. This is very good. Damn. Okay, wow. So Serial really went all in for Khosrow's portrait, which...
Good illustration
cool.
for a good king,
The man deserves it, yeah. Fair enough. So what we have here is, well, the climactic scene of Khosrow's life when he is fully dressed in royal armor, waiting under this tree for his murderers to come and arrest him. So what we see is that Khosrow is here sitting under this large tree, a bejeweled sword laid out in front of him, sheathed. And then he is there, sitting cross-legged. He has some fancy, I think it's lamellar armor you would call it. Greaves on his legs, he has some big mailed, gloved hands. And then he has a large, prominent cloak tied around his shoulders, covering part of the armor that is protecting all of his chest, with some pendants, some pearl-based pendants holding the cloak together. And then we have him there with his long beard, long hair, a crowned helmet with wings on the side, decorations along the rim of it, and a big 2 central poofs that we've gotten used to. And yeah, his face is there, covered in shadow. His eyes are not visible as he waits for the end to come. And alas, it shall. So yes, thank you very much, Sarah. That was a very good image. I definitely recommend anybody to go and look at it. Serial, a lot of work, but it really shows. It's really cool.
You're very welcome. I feel like I had to, he deserves it. Also, apparently his actual portrait is incredibly, over the top. So Can't wait to see.
You'll find out. If you want to look at Serial's portrait, you can go to our Discord if you're a patron. You can go to the episode notes in the description or on our website in Serial's portrait gallery. Now let me show Serial what he actually looked like, and we have a bunch of different portraits for you. So we have a few rock inscriptions, the large one I mentioned earlier, and then the Roman coin. So here we go.
Ooh. Okay, so give me some context.
So this is essentially one of the rock reliefs of Khosrow with him on horseback. You can tell it's an armored horse, and he is there in full armor, ready to charge into battle against the Romans. So this is one of the carvings. So essentially, yeah, you can tell that the horse with the front of it all covered in some sort of armor or decoration.
It's almost a statue. It's like almost fully pulled out of the
very
wall.
much
That's
so.
really cool.
And he is, fully armored. His face is entirely covered. His body is entirely covered. And he has like this long spear.
I love the armor of the horse too. It's so cool.
It is very cool. Like it's several little triangles there. And then this is another one of him where he is being essentially given the right to rule by several deities. The problem is that his face is kind of obscured here because it's been eroded away, which is a shame. But it's nice. You get to see his crown with the wings up top. The wings are a cool touch. And yeah, here he has his sword that he's holding right in front of him. It looks very nice. It does look a lot like
I love that
the
you can
sword
see the clothes of the people and everything.
Yeah, you can see all the different flowing robes and all that. And the sword right in front of him that he's holding in his hand while he's probably receiving the far with the other hand, becoming the rightfully ruling king. Yeah, that's right.
Cool.
And, well, Serial, let me show you then the massive sculpture that is 200 meters long.
Oh, I'm excited. These two are already good.
These are very nice.
The fact that none of these is the actual one you wanted to show me is wild.
I mean, we are rating him on these ones because if you look at the next one, the little red one is the Darius size. The problem is...
No! It's not there!
It wasn't finished, yes. They cleared up a canvas for it, but things went poorly before they could finish it all, which is a real shame.
I was so ready to give him a 10. I'll hate you forever for this.
I'm sorry. You have to
I'll
use
never
the two
forgive
previous
you.
ones.
No.
Because look at it, compared to the Darius one, it's just so massive. It's like, wow. But no, unfortunately, it's just like
it is, but they never made it.
Yeah, you can see there's still rubble at the bottom of it because they didn't have time to clear it up and actually do it properly.
And this has just stayed this way. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Oh my god, I will never recover from...
It is a harsh time.
I'll never recover from the disappointment.
So yeah, so we have the other two sculptures, which are like in slight alcoves, more hidden from the elements, but...
No, my heart!
Yeah, this is all we have.
No.
It's very sad. I'm sorry. Sorry to disappoint you all. But at least, Serial, you can see Khosrow dressed as a Roman emperor in this little coin. It's cute.
Oh my
Look at him.
god, what is this coin?
It's not a very
That's
good
so
coin.
ridiculous looking, oh my god. That's so funny.
Basically, yeah, just him with like a moon and star and a little cross on his crown. But he doesn't have a beard. He has the pendants of Roman emperors. It's very Roman style. But not a good Roman coin, to be fair.
I was so ready to give him a 10, but I can't. That's...
yeah, what do you think about...
My heart, I'll never recover
the other
from
two?
this. Oh my god.
What do you think about the other two sculptures that we had? How would you rate those?
I think I'll go for an 8
good.
because that first relief is so cool. I love the horse. I love the detail on the armor of the horse. I love that actually.
I think an 8 is fair. Like, if we did have the real massive inscription,
I agree.
That would be lovely, but yeah, 8 is as good as we can get. So, alright, with an 8 and an 8, he gets a 4 out of 5 for Face of Faces.
Good.
Our next category is lengthiness. How long do you think this man reigned?
You said the war lasted like 25 years and he had 10 years of like prosperity and he died at around 50-ish, which I needed for like knowing how to depict him on the drawing. That's why I asked. But I'm gonna say he reigned for 30 years.
He reigned for more. He reigned for 37 years.
It should have been more because 25 and 10 is already like 35. But I mean,
10 of it was included in the 25, but yeah. You need to consider all the failing upwards he did.
Yeah.
At the start, so...
Failing upwards.
Yeah. He ruled for a week in 590 when he was overthrown.
Yeah.
And then from 591 to 628 is 37 years, which is very impressive.
So almost 40 years. That's not bad.
That's very good, yeah. But he will have wished he reigned 1 year more, because 37 divided by 10 is 3.7 out of 5 for lengthiness.
Nice.
That brings us to the final score, which is a grand total of 71.7 out of 100, which makes him exactly the same score as Alexander the Great.
Deserved. Deserved.
Entirely fair. Above his great-grandfather Kavad, below Antiochus the Great.
It was a bumpy road, but we got there.
But he is also below his grandfather Khosrow I, who is, according to rating, the greater of the Khosrows in drama. But it's also because this Khosrow failed at the end, so it's like, that's a shame. But it is a massive score. He is 5th. He is tied for 5th place together with Alexander the Great. So, very impressive stuff there. And that brings us to the final question, which is to say, is he falling but getting up again? Is he world-conquering enough? Is he facing his death with dignity enough to be a Shahanshah, or is he just a Shahanah?
Of course he deserves it. Of course he's a Shahanshah. Like,
yes, of course. He is. I mean, come on.
We're not going to have a debate about it.
It's just such a good story overall. There's just so much drama in it. It is so, like, tragic as a story. It's so sublime with, rising and falling and almost reaching the heavens, but then just falling down into disaster. And it's just very impressive and very cool. So, congratulations, Khosrow. You can head off into the Paradise Gardens, meet your usurper, Bahram Chobin, meet your grandfather, Khosrow, meet your great-grandfather, Kavad, and his father, Peroz. You're part of a good line of Shahanshahs, except for Hormizd, which, but oh well, it happens. But yeah, congratulations, Khosrow. You have achieved it. And that brings us to the end of our episode, and well, we're getting close to the end of the Empire. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next time. We can find out if Kavad Shiroe does a good job with the Empire he has taken from his father, or will he destroy it all?
Can't wait for that capital H history to happen.
Yes, exactly. That's going to happen soon, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, in the meantime, if you would like to support us and have more episodes, then you can do that through Patreon, where you'll get a bunch of extra episodes from us about the world around Iran, in Iran, during the time we've covered, and you get a choice of the new episodes that are going to be coming up. So next week, for example, we're going to have an episode on Demetrius II of the Seleucid Empire, who tried to reconquer Iran when it was falling to the Parthians, but then failed miserably. Incidentally, he's also somebody who is on the throne and in the dust twice, so that's exciting. That's an interesting thing to look at. If instead you'd rather not support us monetarily, that's fine, but we'd appreciate if you could give us a review on your podcast app of choice. Just tell other people that you enjoy these episodes, because, we like it, it's pleasant to hear, and also it helps other people find this podcast who otherwise wouldn't have known about it. And I think that's all. This has been a very long episode, but we hope that you can have a lovely week, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.